So glad you're streaming with us. Well, as if victims of domestic violence haven't suffered enough. Now imagine allowing that abusive partner or spouse to legally have a gun. It's a chilling thought, isn't it? Well, that may now change because it appears that the Supreme Court will preserve a federal law that prohibits people under domestic violence restraining orders from having guns. Let's bring in our senior Washington correspondent, Devin Dwyer, for more on this case. So this is definitely one of those blockbuster cases of the year.
One of the
We're
biggest,
paying close attention to.
One of the biggest cases of the year, very close attention, Kira. This was a major test of one of the most popular gun restrictions in the country. It's been on the books for 30 years, and it's a federal law that prohibits anyone under a domestic violence restraining order from buying a gun. Those records are fed into the background check system, and you can't buy a gun. The FBI says the system has blocked 77,000 attempted firearm purchases since 1998 by domestic abusers. And public health experts have told me that they see a measurable decline in that time in the number of deaths of women by their domestic abusers. So this is widely seen as a good measure. But today at the Supreme Court, they heard a challenge to that law brought by a Texas drug dealer who's in prison right now. He's facing gun charges. He was abusive to his girlfriend, but he said there is no historical precedent for this law, and the Supreme Court says gun laws have to have ties to history. So that's what today's debate was all about.
So what do you think? Where do you think justices are leaning?
It was pretty clear today. This is a tough case to say you're going to knock down this law and side with the abusers. It was clear there was at least a majority to uphold the law, so huge relief among gun safety advocates. But how narrow do they keep this? It did seem like the conservative justices, Justice Barrett, Justice Kavanaugh, were inclined to keep the law in place, but do it narrowly, without violating the rights of what the gun rights groups say are nonviolent people that are getting swept up in this. They presented the case of divorce courts and rushed disputes between a husband and wife, and the judge just saying orders against both of you. And so the other side's argument is that this process doesn't allow effective due process. You don't get a chance to have your say in court. There's no conviction involved here. It's some family court judge slapping a protective order on two people and you can't have a gun. They say the women should be able to get a gun. Sometimes they can't. But that argument didn't seem to hold water today at the court. All
right, so you actually had to talk. Well, you've talked to a number of survivors of gun violence. I mean, what have they told you? Anybody specifically that really, moved you within this argument?
There's so many moving stories outside the court today. There were hundreds of domestic violence survivors rallying at the court to preserve the law, including a number of women who had been shot by their intimate partners, boyfriends, husbands, shot in front of their kids. One of the most horrific stories that I had a chance to hear, and we profiled Lachey Crachan from Louisiana, shot 5 times by her then ex-boyfriend before he shot himself. Horrific story. She dropped her 2-year-old daughter. She still has all 5 bullets inside of her. And you see her right there with her daughter, Shayla. And Kira, she told me this law is so important. She fought for it to get in place in 1998, and she hopes that the justices will hear her story and prevent what happened to her from happening to other women.
I sure hope so. I mean, when you look at the number of adults, that are abused, women even that are abused, I mean, every day, lose their lives every day. It's hard for me to imagine.
70 women on average lose their lives every day by a gun wielded by an intimate partner. It's a remarkable number. That's from the CDC.
And how could that individual be allowed to have a gun? Sorry, it seems so unfathomable. Well, I'm so glad you've been reporting on it, and I'm glad we're talking about it.
And the decision will come in June. We'll be back for it. Thanks.
We'll be on it. Appreciate it.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.